President Trump's decision to back Democrats' plans for raising the debt ceiling and permanently removing Congress's debt ceiling requirement is frustrating Republicans, and especially conservatives. Ginny Stars / The Washington Post Democratic leaders have been running victory laps in the days since they struck a deal with President Trump, over Republican objections, to extend the nation's borrowing limit and keep government open for 3 months. But new divisions among Democrats show that peril may yet lie ahead for Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer, DNY, and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, whose newfound connection with the president has put them in a similar spot as many Republicans this year, working with an unreliable and unpopular partner to attain legislation that may never come. Trump's abrupt overtures to Schumer and Pelosi this week have raised difficult questions for the party out of power about how much to collaborate with a mercurial president whose policies and rhetoric have stirred widespread anger and fear on the left. A growing number of Democratic lawmakers and activists are voicing worries about getting too close to Trump, whom they have held up as the opposite of what they stand for on issues of race, immigration, the environment and the economy, and whom they hope to campaign against in next year's midterm elections. At the same time, party leaders are trying to build on the surprise dynamic that materialized this week in the hopes of advancing elements of an agenda that has been largely shut out of the legislative process since Republicans assumed control of the White House and Congress in January. The challenge of that balancing act is compounded by existing struggles that erupted in the party in wake of last year's election losses and have yet to settle. While they have stood united against Trump this year, Democrats have also been riven by ideological divisions, competing power centers and the lack of a clear identity or leader. Now, they are at yet another crossroads. Our base is deeply alienated from this president, said Representative Gerald E. Connolly, Democrat Virginia, in an interview Friday. Our base is not saying work with him, try to find some common ground. That base, he added, will be quite jaded about any overt attempts to make him look good or somehow normalize what we've experienced here. Connolly, like many Democrats, hopes Trump's sudden willingness to work with him will pave the way to a legislative deal to help 690,000 young undocumented immigrants brought into the United States as children, who now face an uncertain future after Trump decided this week to end an Obama-era program to protect them in 6 months. Trump sided with Pelosi and Schumer this week when he backed a 3-month extension of the debt ceiling and government funding as part of a package that also offers more than $15 billion in disaster relief funding. Trump signs $15 billion Harvey aid package after Republicans booed top White House officials. Congressional Republican leaders wanted a longer-term deal, in part to avert a December showdown that is likely to give Democrats leverage to usher in a replacement for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that Trump pledged to end. Republicans had also hoped to avoid voting more than once on raising the nation's borrowing limit before next year's midterm elections. Still, some Democrats are frustrated that party leaders didn't demand more in the package that passed this week, notably a more immediate solution to the immigration question. I plead with the Democratic leadership not to allow a vote on a continuing resolution on the funding of our government, not to allow a vote on raising the debt limit, if we didn't bring you with us, said Representative Luis Gutierrez, DL. At a news conference Friday. He later added, "We didn't prevail." In an interview with reporters Friday, Pelosi didn't back down from her negotiating tactics. She said she does not think Democratic voters believe that she and Schumer should avoid finding common ground with Trump. "I make no apology for doing that with the person who is going to sign the bill," said Pelosi, who was also able to convince Trump to tweet a reassuring message to young immigrants this week. "It gives you great leverage." Others were skeptical. "Short-term tactics may not serve progressive interests in the long term," said Norman Solomon, a delegate to the Democratic National Convention for Senator Bernie Sanders, Vermont, last year. "I think this whole path of getting chummy with Trump is fraught with landmines and pitfalls, and Trump is an expert at detonating under people's feet." Some Democrats believe that Trump has warmed up to Democrats as a way to punish Republican leaders, with whom he has had troubled relationships and been unable to push through any major legislative wins. For that reason, they are approaching the president cautiously. They are also reminding themselves,